Hello, it's Straz, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Amateur Hour. Here, instead of focusing on pro-level play, we look at amateur tournaments, Hero League, and just general normal play, with the goal of making you a better player. If you'd like to submit a game for us to look at, check out the email in the description. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. As we join in here, we can see that both teams are on their respective sides of the map, doing damage to the enemy's Immortal. Uther's gonna push up here and get a stun on Morales, and Kel's gonna get a stun on Uther, take some damage, get a little bit of a trade there, but not really a big deal. I honestly don't feel like Uther should have been in that position. Now it's Nova's job to be a little bit out of position, as she's trying to get some poking done, but it's really not going to do anything. And this is where we're going to drop our first pause right now. Now, this isn't the big, definitive team fight in this video, but it is an important moment that I kind of just want to talk about a little. So first off, if you've played Battlefield Eternity before, then chances are this looks really familiar to you. Both Immortals are fighting right now, the teams were kind of doing their own thing. Neither side was really winning over the other. Blue team, their Immortal was taking a little bit more damage, but not a dramatic amount more. Now, neither team really is in a good position here. If you look at where Muradin is and you look at where Joanna is, these are the tanks, and they're kind of in the front and they're kind of where they need to be. They're both trying to engage in a nice tactical way here, but Kalthas and Zagara are both in a pretty poor position. At the same time, you can tell there's not a lot of communication going on because Gazlo back here is still fighting the Immortals, not really setting up for a team fight. To be fair though, Gazlo is probably the correct one, as this is an engagement blue team should take, as it's 4v5. As we unpause this, you can see some damage goes out. Joanna's going to get a pretty nice peel here and save Zagara. Muradin's going to try and play really aggressive, but it's going to get pushed back by Raynor. Zagara is going to eat Kalthas with that maw. He's going to pop out, get vomited up, and just completely destroyed. Raynor's going to back off now because his health is low. Gazlo is going to come in here and get an ult down, which is going to snag 3 players into a stun. Pretty nice combo there on Gazlo's part. Muradin's going to dive after this Zagara right here, but just going to get away just fine. Muradin's probably screaming at their screen. You can see that Gazlo is going to drop. Muradin's going to be picked off here and cleaned up, and the red team is going to take their definitive advantage and completely just blow this Immortal away. Now this is one of those classic team fights that you see in Hero League right around the 2000 to 2500 MMR that you kind of can predict how they're going to go from the very start. Now that isn't a knock on the players on either team. I'm not trying to call anyone out right now. I'm not trying to put anyone on blast. But that was a team fight that they never should have went into. To start things off, Nova there, not the smartest to try and come up and get an ult on basically a bunch of full health players. There is not a whole lot that they could do here. And you can see that this Nova really not having the best of days. Think she's gonna get taken out here? No, she's gonna manage to get away there. But once again, this is like a high risk, low reward Nova trying to make something happen, and it's just not happening. But as Kalthas plays the poking game here, I just want to kind of point out that teamfight really should have never been engaged. Gazlo had the right idea, trying to just play the defensive Immortal game, and that's kind of what you want to do here. If you don't have 5 players, if you're down a level, if you have some disadvantage, don't try and push it, don't try and do some damage to their Immortal. Instead, sit back, defend yours, wait for 5, and then engage. Team fight's brewing here as Uther is pushed up way too far, and Kalthas is going to take advantage of that with some poke damage. He probably was a little too pushed up there and got a little too greedy himself, but he's going to be just fine. You can see Nova in the back trying to pick off Uther, but her damage isn't going to be enough, and she's putting herself in a pretty shitty place right here and going to get picked off. And once again, we're in a similar place to the last team fight, except even worse since red team has the numbers advantage and level 20 and blue team does not. Now, Zagara right here is pushed up way too far, and Muradin's going to punish her brutally for it. Gazlo drops it all here. No, it's pretty sick, but there's just no follow-up on it, so it does a lot of poke damage, and it's enough to drive them away, but it's not enough to finish anyone off. Muradin is playing fast and loose here as he gets taken out. You're never going to win that game versus Joanna when you have low health. Kalthas can continue trying to poke here, but he's going to have to back off, and oh, he almost gets taken out there. Now, blue team has done a pretty decent job so far of holding off the red team, and the red team has done a pretty poor job of capitalizing on their own advantages. I think losing Zagara as early as they did here was a huge blow, and I really think if that Zagara's player's positioning was a little bit better, they could have done a lot more with this. Now Rainer's going to come down here and try and take this bottom camp, and I'm actually going to pause because I need to talk about just how bad of a decision this is for a second. Now I'm not saying that taking camps is bad and Here's the Storm. Quite the contrary. Taking camps is part of how you win the game, or at least how you push your advantage to win the game. But what Rainer is doing right now is just taking a huge risk for not a whole lot of payoff. If you look at the minimap, you can see where the rest of his team is. Right now, it looks like they're positioning to get the top camp while he's down here at the bottom, obviously trying to pick this camp up. Now, you can't tell based on the minimap, but both sides, the closest camps to both red team and blue team, are about to come off cooldown, and so they're likely to swoop there, but since they're not quite up yet, there's a good chance that the blue team is going to come down here to check on this camp at the very least. It's also worth mentioning that if you're going to do something this risky, then be on the right side of the camp. He's on the left here, meaning he has no escape, so if they swoop down from that side, he's not going to be able to get out safely. Now, lucky enough for Rainer, he's going to be able to finish this camp before the blue team actually makes their way down there. And a lot of people watching at home, and this is why I just had to pull attention to this, would be saying, well, no, this was a great move. He stole it from under their nose. But the thing is he really got lucky because this is a lower MMR game. And honestly, if this was a higher MMR game and the 3000s or above, you would have seen blue team swoop there a lot faster and completely take him out. Likewise, if you remember what I said before, right now you can see that the blue team is just easily cleaning up this wave. It didn't pull them off from any objective, it didn't do any damage to their buildings, it's just silly. As a rule of thumb, if you're capturing a camp, be prepared to do something with it. Either have it counter a wave that's pushing during an objective, or alternatively, have it coming to push when an objective is going on, so the other team has to make the choice of going for the objective or cleaning up the wave. But right now you can see a team fight that's about to brew, so I'm going to drop a pause right here. So first off, this is a good time to fight for both teams. There's no immortal pushing either side, they're both in the same talent tier. Red team only has a single level advantage, which really at this point in the game just isn't that huge of a deal. It's a pretty good time to fight. Also, 5 players from each team are present. So that's the good news. The bad news, take a look at this positioning. Uther and Zagara on red side are pushed up way too far here. Zagara shouldn't be the front line, and Uther sure as hell shouldn't be the front line. While it's okay to run in as Uther to get that stun off, you probably shouldn't be starting a fight that way. On the other hand, Morales is a little out of position. She should probably be a little bit further back right now. But it's understandable because you can see that Muradin's coming from the south and they're trying to get a flank here, as they can see that red team is pushed up too far. Now, I can't really fault Joanna for being where she is right now, since seriously her teammates should be behind her, not the other way around. As we drop this into slow-mo, you're going to notice the first thing is that Muradin is going to jump in. He's going to try and stun this Uther, who's in a pretty poor position here. Unfortunately, no one on blue team is really set up in a good enough spot to take advantage of that stun. Now, you're going to see Nova drop her ult here, which is going to actually do a significant amount of damage. At the same time, Kel's going to have his ult out, and that's mainly being used for zoning here. Now, honestly, I think he should have held onto his ult a little longer, wait for the red team to engage and kind of commit to this, and they don't, so it's basically a wasted ult at this point. Now you can see what's going on here is that both teams are starting to dance back and forth. There's not really a whole lot of commit on either team. Blue team at this point have had 2 opportunities to deal significant amount of damage and they've kind of wasted them. The red team, on the other hand, is still waiting for their chance, and now's a pretty good one as 3 ults on blue have already been wasted. Now here Joanna's going to see Gazlo up top, and that's going to be her opportunity, so she's going to actually pop her ult right here, which is going to slap down a couple of them. Now, this was a pretty good choice, but honestly, I think it would probably have been a little bit better to dive in a little earlier and work to the front line so she could protect Zagara. Now, you're going to see Rainer at this point, with everyone grouped up, is going to pop his ult. While this is all going on, you can see Kalthus has been dropping some really good bombs on red team, and they're doing some work. At the same time, blue team's taking a lot of damage here. As that chain bomb detonates, you can see red team almost getting destroyed. However, Gazlo completely whiffs his gravity bomb, hits 0 people, but Zagara hits a pretty perfect 3-person maul. This leaves Morales out by herself, and she's obviously not going to do much. Now, the red team smartly isn't going to really chase her, but instead collapse on the maul. This is going to allow them to set up a big burst right here on Gazlo, Muradin, and Kalthus, and you can see that Gazlo and Muradin drop immediately. And Kalthus is essentially doomed here, as he's popped Arcane Barrier already, he has no more escapes, he has nothing left, so he's going to fall immediately. This, of course, shows us that the red team in about maybe 5 seconds, has annihilated the blue team for all intents and purposes. Now, Morales is still alive and Nova's still alive, but Nova at this point is not going to be able to clean up 5 members of the red team, and Morales certainly isn't going to be able to stop it either. Coming out of slow-mo here, you can see that Nova is trying to kill this Jaina. Unfortunately, Uther's just going to drop a shield on her, and this Nova is going to get chased. Now, believe it or not, I actually think this is a poor move. If you're sitting at home, you're probably saying, what do you mean? It's just the, cherry on top. Red team has in the bag. What's the big deal? But once again, if there's a trend here that I'm pointing out in this game, I don't want it to just be, oh, red team, they won that team fight. They are taking this, look, core's gonna drop. Look at this, they're totally safe. They could have killed that Nova. And you're probably right, but I think it's never a good habit to get into to say, chase that one player that's left, right? I just don't think that's a good idea. Now, of course, the red team won anyway. That little Nova hiccup at the end had nothing to do with anything. But it is something I want to pay attention to. I want to pay attention to all those little things. And that's one of the things I've been trying to highlight in this game. Specifically, all the things that the red team has been doing wrong. We have a tendency to only notice the mistakes that we take advantage of. Obviously, as those are the ones that make us feel awesome, as they give us the opportunity to make those big plays. On the other hand, we don't tend to notice or realize when someone slips something out from under us, when we fail to punish them for overextending or for bad positioning or whatever. Often, while in the moment those things might register, they don't actually stick with us, meaning that we don't learn from them and we don't become better players. This also works against us for the mistakes that we make. Do you think that Raynor, Uther, and Zagara recognized their misplays in this game? They probably didn't, because they weren't really punished for them. In their minds, they didn't die, so there's no mistake. A good takeaway here is that MOBAs, Here's the Storm, whatever MOBA, honestly, this applies to all of them, they're often about mistakes and punishing the mistakes that the other team is making. When we talk about punish, that's essentially what we're saying. When someone overextends, they do something that they shouldn't be doing, you want to punish them for that action because that's an opportunity for you to take advantage from them. But if you don't do that, then often you're giving the other team an advantage. And in fact, they're punishing you by your failure to punish them. Now, I want to once again say, I'm not trying to just completely be like, wow, red team, you won this game, but you suck. That's not what I'm trying to do here. What I'm trying to do is just highlight, this is how some of those mistakes end up in our gameplay. We do something in Here's the Storm that we shouldn't have done, but we get away with it. They don't punish us for doing it. And so mentally, the next game we play, we're gonna do that same thing. And we might get away with it still, but chances are eventually we're going to get caught and we're gonna lose. And then when we get called on making that mistake, we're gonna say to ourselves, well, was it really a mistake? Because I've done it X times before and I've never lost. But the reality is you have to recognize yourself when you're taking those risks, when you're giving the enemy opportunities to punish you. One of the worst things about this is that you often won't know when you are making these mistakes that should have been punished. What you have to do is go back and watch your replay critically, win or lose. Everyone that played on red team, I think, would have benefited a lot going back to watch this replay and seeing those mistakes that they made. Often, getting better isn't just a matter of doing something over and over and over and over and over again. You can get better and you can get better faster if you take a critical look at what you were doing outside the game. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you won't see things that you obviously would see if you just took a couple minutes to sit down and watch the replay yourself. Just as a note here, this was actually the first episode of Amateur Hour that I recorded. I recorded the first one really quickly last week after seeing the tournament and realizing it was a perfect fit for this series. I'd like to know what you thought about this video versus the first one. Did you prefer this style better? Last week's? Let me know. Your feedback's what helps us make these videos. Also, thanks so much for watching, and see you next week.